Hello, and welcome to Today in History for January 30th. I'm Michael Powell. On January 30th of 1948, Mahatma Gandhi, the political and spiritual leader of the Indian independence movement, was assassinated in New Delhi by a Hindu extremist. Born the son of an Indian official in 1869, Gandhi's mother was deeply religious and early on exposed her son to Jainism, a morally rigorous Indian religion that advocated nonviolence. Gandhi was an unremarkable student, but in 1888 was given an opportunity to study law in England. In 1891, he returned to India, but failing to find regular legal work, he accepted a one-year contract in South Africa in 1893. Settling in Natal, he was subjected to racism and South African laws that restricted the rights of Indian laborers. Gandhi later recalled one such incident in which he was removed from a first-class railway compartment and thrown off the train as his moment of truth. From there on, he decided to fight injustice and defend his rights as an Indian and a man. When his contract expired, he spontaneously decided to remain in South Africa and launched a campaign against legislation that would deprive Indians of the right to vote. He formed the Natal Indian Congress and drew international attention to the plight of Indians in South Africa. In 1906, the Transvaal government sought to further restrict the rights of Indians, and Gandhi organized his first campaign of mass civil disobedience. After 7 years of protest, he negotiated a compromise agreement with the South African government. In 1914, Gandhi returned to India and lived a life of abstinence and spirituality on the periphery of Indian politics. He supported Britain in the First World War, but in 1919 launched a new protest of Britain's mandatory military draft of Indians. Hundreds and thousands answered his call to protest, and by 1920, he was the leader of the Indian movement for independence. He reorganized the Indian National Congress as a political force and launched a massive boycott of British goods, services, and institutions in India. In 1922, he abruptly called off the protests when violence erupted. 1 month later, he was arrested by the British authorities for sedition and found guilty and imprisoned. After his release in 1924, he led an extended fast to protest the Hindu-Muslim violence. In 1928, he returned to national politics when he demanded dominion status for India, and in 1930 launched a mass protest against the British salt tax, which hurt India's poor. In his most famous campaign of civil disobedience, Gandhi and his followers marched to the Arabian Sea, where they made their own salt by evaporating seawater. The march, which resulted in the arrest of Gandhi and 60,000 others, earned a new international respect and support for the leader of his movement. In 1931, Gandhi was released to attend the Round Table Conference on India in London as the sole representative of the Indian National Congress. The meeting was a great disappointment, and after his return to India, he was again imprisoned. While in jail, he led another fast to protest the British government's treatment of the untouchables, the impoverished and degraded Indians who occupied the lowest tiers of the caste system. In 1934, he left Indian Congress Party to work for the economic development of India's many poor. His protege, Jawaharlal Nehru, was named leader of the party in his place. With the outbreak of World War II, Gandhi returned to politics and called for Indian cooperation with the British war effort in exchange for independence. Britain refused and sought to divide India by supporting conservative Hindu-Muslim groups. In response, Gandhi launched the Quit India movement in 1942, which called for a total British withdrawal. Gandhi and other nationalist leaders were imprisoned until 1944. In 1945, a new government came into power in Britain, and negotiation for Indians' independence began. Gandhi sought a unified India, but the Muslim League, which had grown influence during the war, disagreed. After protracted talks with Britain, it was agreed to create two new independent states of India and Pakistan on August 15th of 1947. Gandhi was greatly distressed by the partition, and bloody violence soon broke out between the Hindus and the Muslims in India. In an effort to end India's religious strife, he resorted to fasts and visits to the troubled area. He was on one such visit in New Delhi when Nartrum Goetz, a Hindu extremist who objected to Gandhi's tolerance of the Muslims, fatally shot him. Known as Mahatma, or the Great Soul, during his lifetime, Gandhi's persuasive methods of civil disobedience influenced leaders of civil rights movements around the world, especially Martin Luther King Jr. in the United States. And that's what happened on this day in history, January 30th. I'm Michael Powell. Join me again tomorrow for another episode. And until then, let's watch what YouTube recommends.